When the children are working in the school, they have a very limited amount of time in which they can produce anything, like most art and design courses, and because of that, the work has got to be expressive, it's got to be individual, and it's got to be basically inward-looking, that it deals with feelings and ideas. But also, one's got to look farther afield, one's got to look at the aspect of them leaving school, using those skills in the community, and extending their understanding of the environment in which they're going to work and which they're going to live. Their life skills in that sense. The school here is an inner-city school, it's a comprehensive school. It literally is right in the centre of the city of Portsmouth. We therefore decided to take them away for a week, and they've been taken to a small village in Somerset, a village called Stoke St Gregory. We decided to take the children out of Portsmouth because we wanted them to look at the environment in a new and exciting way. We chose a rural environment really because they could come to terms with it reasonably quickly. It tended to be much smaller in scale than the urban environment they're used to, and consequently the experiences might be more vivid and more vital to begin with.
A school trip is always geography and history, never art. But I think if you actually do art yourself, then you realise there's much more to it than just drawing little inanimate objects here and there. Going out and looking at the environment and trying to analyse it.
Stoke St Gregory, it's almost a ribbon development extending 2.5 miles in each direction. So it doesn't fit into the normal pattern of beautiful villages in beautiful Britain, which as far as we're concerned is to our advantage, because those sort of things will not get in the way of thinking about how we might change the environment, how we might develop it, how we might make it better, or in some cases even make it worse.
Well, welcome to Stoke St Gregory. If you can put your stuff down there. If you put your stuff up there. If it's on the stage, leave it. Put anything that you need to down there. Sure.
Well, we'd been told by the previous year about this church hall, and I thought it was going to be much smaller, a dark, dank little place, you know. Not very nice, but when we got there, it was really nice.
Then we were told we'd be working from 9 o'clock in the morning to 9:30 at night, and I thought, yeah, I mean, who would make you work that hard? And we did.
The thing is that our focus this week is on the aesthetic and the design aspects. We'll be looking closely at the village, and we should remember that both buildings and spaces are important. In terms of buildings, a farm shed is just as important as the church or a pub or a shop. And we're concerned with structures of any kind. It might be structures for shelter, structures to work in, structures to live in, structures for protection, either of people or things. And we're interested, though, not just in structures, but also in spaces. We want to know how people use spaces, how they move through them, what activities go on there, how they interact with people in them, and how they affect each other. I know it's Friday night, but tomorrow is certainly not a day off. We start in earnest. We're working towards a presentation of a design project next Thursday for the villagers. And to help you develop the necessary skills to do this, we will be doing a series of exercises over the next few days. Later ones are called I Spy and the Good, the Bad and the Ugly. But tomorrow we start with an exercise to explore the nature of spaces, using the church as a reference point, and we're calling this steeplechasing. I want you to draw the space in which you're standing with the church steeple in view. Like you will be at the bottom of the page and the church steeple will be somewhere else. Now, I want 30 drawings of different spaces. And because each drawing is only 3 minutes long, you will have to be highly selective. You can't draw every single thing in 3 minutes. So, for the marks that you make on the paper, it's got to be the most important elements in the space.
All right, where's the coffee then?
These are nice.
This way?
No, that's more
Oh,
good.
absolutely typical.
Where's yours coming? No, are these only 3 minutes? That's more than 3 minutes, isn't it?
3 minutes?
Yeah, my God, that's excellent for 3 minutes. John, how many did you get altogether? Oh, 19. All right. Here we've got a nice consideration of space. Here we're getting so close to objects that there's no feeling of space because she is not really exploring the spatial quality. You're exploring the relationships of objects with each other. I agree it's incredibly difficult, but I would push you to tackle it. Here in this set, I can read it much more fluently. We have highly selective mark making. He's left out extraneous details. He hasn't put in each leaf and petal of the flowers. He has just made summary marks to indicate different sorts of elements. I would ask everybody, because I don't think there's anybody here who is not guilty of chickening out of dealing with space. I would ask you to reconsider how you are actually defining space. And the only thing I can say to you, it's the ground space in which you're standing. All right?
Yesterday we started off on the I Spy work. Now that was just pure description. We just asked you to go out and find, locate for yourself. So that was descriptive. Later on in the evening, of course, you were asked to interpret. So you moved on from just collecting things and you had to interpret it in your terms to everybody else. Today we're moving into what we consider to be the top gear. It's the first stage at which you've got to evaluate. And in terms of format, we're asking you very simply to go out and find places, areas, which you think are good, bad ones, and ugly ones, where you're not very happy with it, but you can see possibilities for changing it, altering it, making it better. In other words, you'd want to do that. You feel as though it's worthy of it. And then we move on to the quality. Now, quality is something you've referred to all the time, and it was interesting last night. A lot of you started saying, well, I like this or I didn't like that. You are referring to the quality, but we want to tighten that up. In other words, what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, why is it like that? Why do you think it's like that? And draw attention to the qualities of shape, form, masses, scale, colour, texture. Why do you like it? Why do you dislike it? Now, how are we doing? Have you got an absolutely clear idea of why you're drawing the church now?
Because I hate it.
You hate it. What do you hate about it?
It's dark and it's evil looking.
Right, it's dark and it's evil looking. Get rid of all that detail. All right? So really, you're going for the big block shapes, aren't you? And write it.
I was doing that.
Put that on first thing. Which one is this for, Karen?
Ugly.
Why do you think it's ugly?
It's all corrugated iron and stuff like that. If you have to use corrugated iron, you could keep it a bit nicer.
John, why do you think this is ugly?
Well, the things I don't like about it is that it's so grey, it's stony, it's a hard colour. It's all sort of one texture. There's not a lot of light entering or not a lot of light hitting it because the hedge is so high. So the best thing to do, I think, would to get rid of that tree altogether, cut the hedge down, trim it neater, not get rid of it because it forms sort of a barrier, almost makes the house look protected and kept. Then I thought about making the windows a bit bigger and perhaps painting the window frames a different colour, say yellow, but I thought it looked a bit more it was more pretentious. I even paved the floor. It was, no, I didn't like that one at all either. I put a larger window in here, but it began to look very flat. I didn't like that at all. Then I thought about decorating the windows, taking the whole hedge out, taking the whole tree out, and putting some decoration around the windows with these sort of bamboo arch things you can get. But I thought it looked like a church, so I dismissed that idea. Then I went back and looked at the thing how it was in the first place, and I thought there's not much wrong with it really, is there? I mean, the building's quite a nice shape. It's just how to cope with the darkness of it. I mean, how to get some light to hit it. You could whitewash the walls or paint them, or... I tried putting a red front door on to brighten it up, but it didn't do much. So I'm still looking for the answer.
That's what all designers say.
Thank you very much.
Well, if it's to do with change, we've got to decide what's going to be changed, haven't we, to some extent? Or at least focusing on some areas that could possibly be changed.
Well, the main focus of the village is the square. It has a central point where most of the villagers come and meet. And therefore it focuses the attention of pedestrians, cars, travelling shops and so on.
Right.
And therefore that would be an ideal place to start a design brief.
Yeah, but that's good because it's not only a focus for activity in that way, it's also in itself a visual focus. It is a closed area. It is the place where roads meet and where there's a group of significant buildings.
Mm. Yeah, but all that sounds as if you can just look at the place as it is. I think that if you're considering design, the emphasis has got to be on the notion of change.
Right.
And so I think we've got to juggle the two, that the kids are helped to come to grips with what is, but also to consider what might be.
You can start to put in context. Right, come on, wake up. Come on. Come on, you look lovely, but we've got to start work. Come. That's it. Burst into life. Morning.
Now, I'd like to remind us that we're moving now from analysing what is there to looking at what might be there in the future. Design is not a neat, tidy thing where there is one perfect solution. That what people need varies from person to person. One person's delightful addition to the village would be another person's eyesore, and they'd be very upset about it.
The environment's always changing. It is being manipulated by somebody, whether it's an individual in their own private little space, or whether it's a council in their public spaces. And it's going to affect how you live, how everybody lives, in terms of what they can do and what they can't do, and the general effect on them visually. It may well lead to argument, and it may well lead to conflict. And that is the essential elements of any design work. There will be vested interests. One person thinking one thing is more important than another.
We've decided that we have to assume that one piece of land, one important plot of land, is about to be considered for change. And so we want you to assume that the site of the Royal Oak Public House is to be developed. Now, I'm very careful you didn't say redeveloped. Let's assume that there's going to be a major change, and I will leave it up to you and your group to decide exactly what that change should be. What does the village need is the question you ought to ask yourself.
So what we're going to be looking at is what we might add to that and how it might be in the future. And we're going to use all those means of study that we've used so far, the drawings, the serial vision, the cutouts, the models, first of all, to explore the square as it is, then to use them as a basis for our discussion about how it might be, and then to come to some conclusions about the way that it should be. And we're going to have to defend our arguments about that. We're going to be questioned very closely about the proposals we make. So we've got to be able to reason it through and to say, it's for this reason that we're putting forward this proposal.
This is going to be for the presentation, right? On the display.
We went out and drew the square from all different angles. We did what was called serial vision. And then we brought all our work back into the studio and actually sat down and thought about it together and discussed it in a group. Ideas sprang from that. We all did different things.
Do they know what the purpose of making a model is? Because I'm a bit worried about this. They're spending all the time doing it. It looks nice, represents building spaces, boundaries. But I don't think there's too much analysis. I don't think there's too much evaluation of the situation as a basis then for making informed decisions about what might.
We've got to evaluate that model.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how it's been used in much the same way as you evaluate the real experience.
Yeah.
So there's a transference that
But
goes on.
then there's got to be an imaginative leap because you might have the physical features in scale, fair enough, but then I think it's a case of the kids imagining them in the space they have now created, experiencing those structures, those conditions that they have created, and it's not there for them, it's a process of interpretation.
See, this is really important because this is what designers actually have to do. And we've all got the ability to do it, but we're not very practiced at it. So if we don't give them that experience, we're not really introducing them to design, I think.
Here we've redesigned the park, so as we've got an archway through here where cars can park, a garden on this side here, and we've made this is a skittle alley which we've moved, and we put a few trees and that in there. There'll be sort of parasols and seats outside, and also it gives a greater feeling of containment within the square because you've got this angular wall here.
And a butcher and a bakery, and a market here, and a car park here for the market.
Well, we thought about an open-air market, but it's not very practical really. They've got little vans and things that come in selling produce from the back.
Which we're going to stick.
Here, we've made a space for it to park
No,
here.
it's here.
No, it isn't, it's there.
Well, I moved it.
Oh, God, that frightened me to death. I was so worried. I've never spoken to so many people before in my life.
So you're looking down and glancing back, looking down and glancing back. Picture your eyes out there somewhere. Come back.
Okay. Alright, put it down here and just... The first stage of our project was basically to go out and collect information to help us.
To talk on a subject that you've had to come up with in the last 1.5 days. You might know it inside yourself, but to explain to other people is harassing. You'd been given a verbal dialogue through the teachers. There was lots of words that were brought new to us that could explain the environment, and we didn't know those words before we went, and now you can use them freely to explain yourself.
In the area around and including pub, so as to give a greater feeling of containment.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to your hall again, and thank you for coming tonight. It's nice to see such a good turnout, and thank you very much for welcoming us again to your village hall and putting up with all our rather strange activities around your village. I'm John Phillips.
Our approach to the problem was to concern ourselves especially with retaining the character of the village. Our impression of the village was that it was quiet, private, spread out, separate, unfussy, and it lacked a sense of community. The spaces were open, not necessarily well used or well considered. They were more conducive to walking through them than actually meeting there. The major shared public space in the village is, of course, the square, which formed the
construct a 3D model. I studied the facades of what I felt to be the most important elements in the village centre, which were the church, the pub, the shop, and Stoke House.
The first thing that we found needed improving was Stoke House Corner. And this, we thought, was a danger element.
There was a greater feel of containment within the space.
We decided not to get rid of the pub, but to move it back, giving us a green grass verge. We moved the skittle alley, which is at the back.
We didn't really get across the ideas that we'd originally thought out, and it's just quite sad because I thought they were quite good ideas. And the villagers obviously didn't understand what we were talking about at all.
A shop.
We were using language that the villagers wouldn't really be able to understand. You know, it was very highfalutin, arty language, which we'd only learnt that week. And so I thought that was silly to use that language, but we were told off if we didn't use it. We just had too many distractions, really. Things like the overhead projector. After all, we were doing the presentation for the villagers, and if they can't understand the language, then what's the point of doing a presentation for them anyway?
Mobile shops that we have come to town, so they can park and people can easily get to them.
We hope you found our theories interesting. We're very pleased to answer any questions afterwards and have a chat.
When you've got a pub and tried to turn it into something that was really viable, like I'm trying to do, you need three things. You need a large garden area if you've got children, going to have children. B, you need a large car park if you're going to attract a lot of cars. And C, you've got to see it, immediately recognise it's a pub and stop. Now, are they immediately going to recognise that as a pub?
Yeah, I should imagine so. Yeah.
But with a shop there as well, because you put a shop and a post office next door, which is a good thing for the locals, and they know that it's a shop next door to a pub. But somebody just coming down the road who's totally strange is going to see a shop. A children's area so that the kids are running around, or
well, that's
accommodating.
It's outside.
That's right, because
and there's one at the
because
back.
Kids are coming more and more. The important thing in a pub now is that you've got to accommodate children.
Yeah.
And the problem you've got there with inviting cars to go through that gap is that you're inviting children on the grass. Yeah. And what's going to happen is you've got children spilling over here, and you're only going to let one mad urban to come around there a bit quick, and you've got a potential hazard situation.
I've learnt to be more perceptive, and I've learnt to appreciate the hard work that goes into designing.
Instead of just going through a place, I'd go through it with an open eye, critical.
Taught me that I could change things that I've never thought about doing and how to improve it, from my point of view, that is.
You see a little model of an environment, and it looks very nice, little trees and everything, but when it's actually there and people are in it, it's an instant environment, and environments don't work like that. I think they have to be built up over years and years, so things adapt. You find problems arise when you do things like that, sudden things.
I think people ought to have a say of what their environments look like, not just the few who are into planning environments, because I think everyone's got something to give.